What did you expect? The Montreal Canadiens go into Colorado and get their asses handed to them by the Nordiques by a score of 7-2. Let's just talk some puck. Hey gang, Kosta here from PuckTalk Montreal on this November 29th, 2025, as the Montreal Canadiens leave Colorado, licking their wounds after getting hammered by a score of 7-2. Before I get into the highlights, let me just preface something. When I graduated from high school back in 1989, yes, that far back, in my bio for my grad picture, my pet please was the Montreal Canadiens, obviously. My pet peeve, the Quebec Nordiques. Little did I know that 4 years after graduating, the Quebec Nordiques would be gone and I'd be happier than a pig in shit. But then Colorado decided, you know what? Let me piss off Montreal Canadiens fans by wearing Quebec Nordiques colors against their beloved Montreal Canadiens. Oh my God. Let's just say flashbacks to the 1980s when the Stastnys were dominating in the playoffs and Steve Penny couldn't catch a puck if his life depended on him. But I digress. This isn't the Quebec Nordiques. It's the Colorado Nordiques or the Denver Nordiques or whatever the hell Nordiques you want to call them. At the end of the day, it is what it is. So let's take a look at the highlights, and they're brought to you, of course, as always, by Instacustoms. Instacustoms.com is Canada's highest rated print shop with over 3,000 Google reviews and a 4.9 star rating. They offer direct-to-garment printing on all your favorite clothing, along with coffee and travel mugs, and they even offer embroidery. Habs won a Stanley Cup? You can win too on Stanley Street at Instacustoms.com. Now, it started early enough at about 7:32 of the first period. Brock Nelson scoring a goal on a 3-on-3, which seemed a little unlikely, but watch how poorly Alexander Carrier plays this goal. As the puck goes over to the wing, Carrier not only takes the wrong guy, but he also wipes out Arbor Xhekaj in the process. Here it is again. He comes across, wipes out his own defenseman, and Colorado scores. And if you're going to sit there and say, well, that's not really his fault, watch this, okay? Just take a look. Here's an actual still image of that goal. Carrier's in the middle. If you look at the Canadiens' defensive coverage, okay, you've got Gallagher coming on the back check on the near side. You've got Demidov, who's pressuring the puck carrier. You've got, I think it's number 94 in the middle. That's the guy who's the decoy, okay? And that guy is bearing down on Arbor Xhekaj. Why is Carrier going right to left again and leaving his side completely open? All Brock Nelson had to do was post up at the top of the slot, and he had a wide open net to shoot at. That's exactly what happened here. And it's not the first time Carrier has done this, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Getting on to the second goal. Here's one that's controversial beyond controversial. Okay? Gabriel Landeskog gets credit for this goal, but take a look at how it goes in. Landeskog contacts with Anderson and takes the puck in the net after having kicked Dobish's leg out. Dobish spins after the contact. Now, it was deemed by the referees that Anderson contacted Landeskog. But when you take a look at it, that's not what happened. So, again, we'll come back to it later because regardless of whether they bumped into each other or not, there's a different explanation that needs to be had there. But to say that that goal didn't get the Canadiens off their game was an understatement because until that point, the Canadiens were playing extremely well. But once that goal was called, it kind of deflated the Canadiens at that point. Moving on to the second period now, where just 50 seconds in, Brett Burns fires a shot off a face-off that Dobish never saw. Here it is. Puck gets to him, there's a screen in front, and they score. Too quick to see it? Well, here it is again. Right to him, traffic in front, never sees the puck. Here it is one more time. Everybody clusters to the slot, and Dobish can't see it. That makes it 3-0. If that's not bad enough, Brock Nelson scores on a wide open net. Watch this. You want to talk about shoddy defensive coverage? Watch this. Neckash just drops the puck back, and it's wide open. Here it is again. Neckash comes, draws everybody in, drops it. Nilsson's just standing by himself. Everybody decided not to cover him. That made it 4-0. Well, a little glimmer of hope after that. A little bit. On a play that Yuri Slafkovsky makes and a beautiful pass cross crease over to Ivan Demidov to make it 4-1. What can you say about Slav? Watch this. He pulls a spinorama, goes tight, sends it across, bang, one-timer by Demidov. Here it is again. Watch this again. Spinorama, gets away from his check, pass across, Demidov wide open. It's 4-1. Again, little glimmer of hope. And the nice thing is that after that, there wasn't much of a celebration. The guys fist pumped it, went back to the bench because they knew there was still work to do. Well, the work never got done because later in the period, just inside the last minute, Nathan MacKinnon got on the board with his 20th goal of the season on what you would call a off-the-pad pass that I always talk about. Landeskog gets the puck, fires it far side on Dobesh. It goes right to MacKinnon, and there we go. It's 5-1 to end the second period. And now, everybody's going to say, yeah, Carrier's on the ice again. But I'm not going to blame Carrier on that goal because on that play, MacKinnon came straight off the bench. There was no way for him to know he was there. So, a little bit of a pass, a very long rebound given out by Dobesh right onto the stick of the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League right now. That's going to end up in the back of the net 10 times out of 10. It's 5-1. Cue the third period where Devon Toews scores off the stick of Mike Matheson. Now, Matheson's doing his job, tying up his man, right? Neckash. Toews across, but unfortunately, Matheson's stick is there. Goes in off his stick and in, so whether you like it or not, it is now 6-1. Game's out of reach. It is what it is, right? Well, another little glimmer of hope from the Montreal Canadiens as Lane Hudson scores on the power play on a one-timer to make it 6-2 at this point. Here's the pass. Clapper scores. Not something we see every day from him, is it? But perfect setup. Not at the point, but at the top of the circles. And he claps it home to make it 6-2. Then finally, Gabriel Landeskog, who had a game. Him and Brock Nelson were outstanding for the Nordiques tonight. Or this afternoon, I should say. He gets a power play goal at 6:52 of the third period, ending the misery as he tips in a shot from MacKinnon. Watch this tip. Beautiful. Outside tip under the glove of Dobesh to make it 7-2. And that's all she wrote. The Canadiens couldn't have gotten out of Denver faster. So let's analyze this debacle. And for analysis, we talk cheapesttshirts.ca. Cheapesttshirts.ca has men's, women's, and children's t-shirts, all sizes, hoodies too, with over 1,000 products to choose from. Anything you need for merchandise or the best deals on everyday clothing, cheapesttshirts.ca is your go-to source. Buy today, ship tomorrow, cheapesttshirts.ca. So now here's the thing, right? When we discussed the keys to victories yesterday, what is it? Well, number one, shut down the MacKinnon line. That didn't happen. Number two, win the neutral zone battle. Well, that didn't happen because the Avalanche were passing the puck from their own zone up through the neutral zone ad nauseum. Free for all. And this is after that second goal, right? When the game first started, the Canadiens actually came out with more energy, more pace than the Avalanche. And the Avalanche were holding them at bay. If not for Mackenzie Blackwood, his goaltending was outstanding in that first period, and that's what kept the Canadiens off the board because they should have had at least a couple of goals, but he robbed the Canadiens more than once in that first period. So kudos on Mackenzie Blackwood for his performance in that first period, which really set the tempo for this hockey game. But as I mentioned, the neutral zone battle completely won by the Avalanche. They were attacking with speed all night long, and the Canadiens didn't have an answer for it. Then I said attack the Colorado's defensive depth. That didn't happen because why? They were moving the puck out of the zone so quickly, effectively. Toews up to Landeskog or MacKinnon or Nelson, you name it. It was getting up quickly. And the Canadiens were allowing too much of a gap between the neutral zone, and those passes were getting through without any issue. A big problem against a team like the Avalanche who attack in transition way faster than any other team in the National Hockey League. Special teams discipline, well, The Canadiens were 1 for 2 on the power play. Avalanche 1 for 4. Call it what it is. The Canadiens did manage to win the special teams battle because they did play very well on the penalty kill. And then there's goaltending. And a lot of the goaltending, while I would say the first Brock Nelson goal was a stoppable shot, a lot of the rest of it was pretty much, screenshots, rebounds, etc. Especially that massive rebound off of the Landeskog shot that went over to McKinnon. But that's by design, guys. It's something that a lot of people say, oh, well, no, it's not. And, you don't know what you're talking about, Kosta. I do. It's something I teach players all the time. And I talk about it on this show. You want to generate rebounds when you're on a 2-on-1, right? Or when you have a guy coming off the backside. If you can't get a pass through and there's no clear passing lane, your only other avenue is to take a shot on the goalie's far side, forcing him to make a save and kick out a rebound. That's what Landeskog did. He fired a shot low, right off the pad of Dobish, onto the stick of McKinnon, and into the back of the net. It was perfection. Just the way coaches draw it up. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes the puck bounces in a different direction. Sometimes it bounces out into the slot. It's not a perfect science. But this particular play by Landeskog was a pièce de résistance. And that's pretty much where we were. 5 keys to victory, 1 actually attained. So where does that leave the Canadiens when you talk about analyzing this hockey game? Well, let's start with my friend and yours, Alexandre Carrier. I have not been a fan of his defense lately. One of the things that I find more often than not is he has his back turned to the play and he's chasing the puck. And that's kind of what Arbor Jackeye got hammered for last season, which he hasn't done this year. You take a look at Jackeye, he's rarely on the wrong side of the puck and he's not chasing players around the zone. Carrier, we see him more often than not, he comes across to the opposite side that he's playing on to try to make plays. That has to stop. All right? The Canadiens need him to stabilize himself on defense. Stefan Robida's got to do some work with him. He's got to make sure he pulls him aside, shows him the videos, and tells him, Alex, you're being way too aggressive on the offensive side of the puck. You need to learn to back off a little bit more quickly to allow yourself to face oncoming attackers instead of having your back turned and not being able to see what's behind you. The Brock Nelson goal, as I mentioned, clear as day. Here it is. Here's the picture again. He has no idea that Nelson, number 11 in this picture, is right behind him, bearing down on the slot. So what does he do? He focuses on the puck. He follows number 94. And number 94, I keep saying that. I sound like the bug-eyed walrus after Rafael Diaz got absolutely wallpapered against the Ottawa Senators. 94. Who's 94? Hang on. I can get that really quick. Event summary, 94 for the Avalanche is Yoel Kiviranta. There you go. So Kiviranta comes up the middle, and Jackeye, to his credit, is in perfect position. He's playing a 2-on-1 basically until the back pressure comes from Demidov. So Demidov is coming across to take away the pass. Kiviranta is driving the mid-ice lane. Jackeye's right there. He's giving the shot to the goalie, and he's taking away the pass through the middle on that 2-on-1. But on the backside of it, on the opposite side, you've got Gallagher trying to catch up to the play, and you've got Carrier, who's just puck watching. Comes across, takes Kiviranta, knocks out Jackeye, so Jackeye can't cover anybody at this point, and the puck ends up in the back of the net. I know you're going to say I'm difficult on him, and I'm hard on him, because that's what a lot of people say. But it's the God honest truth. If you watch some of the goals that have gone in versus the Montreal Canadiens with Carrier on the ice, his reads are completely wrong. He's vacating the front of the net to go help along the boards, leaving the front of the net open, forcing his forwards to try to defend, which isn't their job at that point, that deep into the zone. There's a lot of things that you look at Carrier right now, and his game is just not there. It needs to be cleaned up. Maybe the Canadiens have given him too much responsibility playing alongside, whether it's Jackeye or Struble or you name it, Engstrom being another one. Engstrom hasn't been playing poorly. So the fact that he's overcommitting to play like that, somebody's got to back him off and say, listen, Alex, you need to cool it down in the defensive zone. You need to make sure that your reads are good. You need to make sure you're in the right position, because right now he's not. And it's costing the Canadiens goals. It's as simple as that. Another thing, it's another one of those games where the Canadiens don't get as many shots as they should. 23 shots total against Mackenzie Blackwood, while the Avalanche shot 36 times versus Dobesh. And that's a number I'm just not comfortable with. And early in this hockey game, one of the other things that I didn't like that also happened the other night, despite the fact the Canadiens did win versus Vegas, is that they were outclassed at the faceoff dot for the majority of the hockey game. They still ended up on the wrong side of that number. Where was it here? They were 44.8% in the faceoff dot. For the majority of this game, though, they were around the 60% mark. That's not anywhere near good enough. So, Mark Bureau, come in. Let's get some work done, because the guys are getting away from the good habits that they created. Now, it could very well be because you're missing guys like Alex Newhook and Kirby Dach, who was doing well at the faceoff dot, that's hurting you. But you still need to address it. It's not something that you can allow, because the Canadiens, if they're going to be a team that doesn't shoot as often as you'd like, they need to be a team that has possession of the puck, at the very least, if they're going to be that fine with how they're going to shoot. And I don't have a problem with it so long as they're putting pucks in the net. But the minute their shooting percentage drops back down to earth, shooting 20, 22 times in a game is going to become problematic. I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope they can maintain a 25. On the road, they were about 30% when it comes to their shooting percentage. That may very well come down a little bit. And so we really need to see the Canadiens shoot a little bit more, because as I've mentioned time and time again, it's not necessarily just about the quality of the shot. It's about fatiguing the other goaltender. When you take 30, 32, 33 shots on goal in a hockey game, right, and you have possession of the puck, you tend to move it back and forth, and you tend to force the other goaltender to move inside the crease. When you do that, you fatigue him. And what happens when a goaltender gets fatigued? He makes mistakes. And when he makes mistakes, the puck ends up in the back of the net. It's just like defensemen. It's just like forwards, especially with D-men. If you take D-men and you put them into the boards often enough, and you force them to move pucks quickly, and you force them to skate up ice, oftentimes they become fatigued and make mistakes in their own zone, which leads to good scoring chances. It's all part of the same recipe. Finish your body checks on your defensemen. Force them to move the puck quickly. Be strong on the forecheck. Make sure you get shots on goal to fatigue the goaltender at the same time. It's all part and parcel to success in any league, not just the National Hockey League, but at any level. I was part of a game tonight where for 2 periods, our team did not press the opposition at all. It was 1-1 after 40 minutes. And my team, the Hawkesbury Knights, is the best team in the USPHL Premier right now, 3 points up on the next team down. So you would think that a team that has that kind of acumen and that kind of pedigree would push a little bit harder and be able to maintain that pressure. Nope. But in the third period, when they started playing a little bit more aggressive, finishing their body checks, getting in hard on the forecheck, forcing the D to make plays, they scored 3 goals and they won the hockey game 4-1. So examples are there. You can look anywhere at any team in the National Hockey League or any other division you want to look at. NHL, AHL, junior, you name it. When a team is not aggressive, when a team sits back and is passive and allows the other team to ram the puck down their throat, like we saw tonight, what happens? You end up on the wrong side of the ledger. And let me tell you something about those Quebec Nordiques jerseys that the Avalanche were wearing. I grew up hating the Nordiques. Now, the Nordiques, of course, came into the National Hockey League in the 1979-1980 season, along with the Oilers, the Winnipeg Jets, and the, did I just pull a blank? I just had them in my head and I lost it. Jets, Oilers, Nordiques, Hartford Whalers, that's the other one. Missed that team, by the way. I love the color of that jersey. But anyway. And the one thing about the Quebec Nordiques that really used to piss me off is they used to get under your skin. Why? Because Michel Bergeron was their coach. And Michel Bergeron was a lightning rod for controversy. And just seeing him behind the bench and how animated he was used to get people going. And Montreal hated Quebec for that, because Quebec didn't have a lot of superstars. They had the Stastny brothers, right? Their goaltending wasn't great. When they first broke into the league, they had Daniel Bouchard, then Mario Gosselin, then Stéphane Fisset. Then they ended up with Ron Hextall in 1993 when the Canadiens beat them in 6 games. I mean, there's a lot of history between the Canadiens and the Nordiques, despite the fact that the Nordiques were only in the National Hockey League for 13, 14 seasons, right? You've got the Good Friday Massacre, where Jean Hamel's career ended on a punch from Louis Slager. There's so much that has gone on between those two teams. You know, playoff matchups. Stastny scoring in overtime on Steve Penny. As I mentioned, Steve Penny unable to catch a goal, never mind a puck. But anyway, and ending that series. I mean, there's so much hatred for the Nordiques. But that being said, we also miss the Nordiques, especially in Quebec City, because that rivalry, it rivaled that of the Boston Bruins and Montreal Canadiens. In hatred is what I mean. Not necessarily in the quality of the play, because you couldn't compare the Boston Bruins of the 70s to the Quebec Nordiques. It just wasn't right? But just overall, the hatred between the two teams was awesome. And the cities are 3-4 hours apart. So Nordiques fans would travel well. And you had a lot of that animosity going back and forth, fights in the crowd, you name it. It was just nonstop. And that's the part I miss. What I don't miss is those assholes beating us. Well, let's keep that simple. So when I see the Avalanche wear those jerseys, I cringe. Not because they're ugly. Not because I have a disdain for the province of Quebec. Just because I hated that team growing up. It's as simple as that. So where does that leave the Montreal Canadiens? Well, the Canadiens now licking their wounds, going to December. You know, they just broke their 3-game winning streak with that loss against the Avalanche. And then they play on Tuesday against the Ottawa Senators and Wednesday against the Winnipeg Jets. Back-to-back once again. We're going to visit what happened this past week in tomorrow's show. And on Monday, we'll look forward to Brady Tkachuk being back in the lineup and how different that's going to make the Ottawa Senators. Be sure, guys, to subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, tell your friends about it, because word of mouth is the best way to try to spread something, right? Thanks again to our sponsors, instacustoms.com and cheapesttshirts.ca, and we'll see you tomorrow for the weekend review.